Okay.
This Masonic apron was owned by Hampson Whidden, who lived at Lake Burn, Florida. And he was in 1860. He was 20 years old, and his wife was 14. He joined the Confederate Army when the war started in 1861. When he received the Masonic apron, we don't know, but it was between 1861 and 1864. And the Grand Lodge of Florida has researched it, and they can't find which lodge he belonged to. We decided that it was probably a military lodge. It was temporary. We think this Masonic apron could have been passed down to him by his grandfather. And we haven't any way to check that because he came out of Georgia. But anyway, it belonged to him when he was killed in 1864. They apparently wounded at the Battle of Olustee and died later in the hospital in Lake City. His wife gave this to her granddaughter as a keepsake to give to the next Mason in the family. And the next Mason was my great uncle Reggie Mathis, and it was given to him. And he gave it to me because I was the next Mason in the family. And I have no Mason in the family to pass it on to. So I'm donating it to the Historical Society.
And it's a permanent donation to the Historical?
It's a permanent donation.
And this...
The $5 bill belonged to the widow of the man who had the Masonic apron, Hampson Whidden. I think her name was Jessie A. Whidden. She was a Whitfield before they were married. And she gave it to her granddaughter as a keepsake, and my grandmother as a keepsake, passed on to her. And my mother passed, it was passed from my great-grandmother to my grandmother on to me as a keepsake.
And didn't the Mason Lodge in or the Grand Mason Lodge in Tallahassee or Florida?
Jacksonville Grand Lodge, they researched this all the way.
And
they wanted it real bad.
And this is probably the oldest one in the state of Florida, they believe?
Well, the Grand Pursuant said that it probably was, but I don't know.
That's pretty cool, though.
That they could prove that how old it was, and it very well may be. We don't know that it's not 50 years older than that.
Yeah.
It very well may be, because it could have, it's a tradition to pass Masonic aprons on. And it may have been passed on to him by his father, who was Jeremiah Whidden. But he came down here from Georgia. And it could have been in Georgia. We don't really know how old it is, but we can track it back to that date between 1861 and 1864.
And do you know what year Jeremiah Whidden was born?
Huh?
You know what year Jeremiah Whidden was born and died?
Well, he's buried down here.
He's buried
He
here.
was born in Georgia.
And what cemetery is he buried in?
Huh?
What cemetery is he buried in?
Oakland.
And the one that died in Lake City, where is he buried?
Well, this one,
Yeah.
he's buried in the Confederate Cemetery there. They got a record of that, but they can't pinpoint the grave. All the markers have rotted down. The Sons of the Confederacy was going to dig him up and carry him to Lake Burn and give him a Confederate Masonic funeral. A military funeral. and buried by his wife, but they couldn't locate which grave was it.
Wow.
I didn't get into them. A cousin of mine wanted to get in the Sons of the Confederacy, and he had to prove his genealogy, and they called me, and I verified all this.
And is there any other thing you want to tell us about anything?
I can't think of anything. She never remarried his wife, and she never had but 2 children. And she accumulated a considerable amount of land there around Lake Bird. Some of it's still in the family until the last few weeks when they had to sell it to pay lawyer fees. You read all that, I know.
I hadn't paid attention to it.
And paid attention to it. Well, I think it's about all gone, but she accumulated quite a bit. I have an old deed that where she bought 80 acres from James A. Wentworth. That's Alvin's daddy, for 50 cents an acre. But I promised to give that to a Wentworth. But I don't have any other history on it.
Did you name the people that went through whose hands it went to, who wore it before you did?
What? This?
Yeah.
Well, it went to Hanson with. It belonged to Hanson. He was killed. It was put away till the next Master Mason came along, which was my great uncle, Reggie Mathis. And he had it, and he gave it to me as the next Master Mason just before he died.
This is really cool. We really appreciate it, and it's a really cool, unique piece of history that many will enjoy, and it's something that should be.
It should be preserved. If my daughter had kept this, it would have wound up in the yard sale somewhere down the road.
Yeah.
Really would. Somebody paid money for that, and then they sold that for $25. And that's a good material. It's very good. That's handmade.
Oh, you can tell.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating, and we'll preserve it, and we'll get a document just saying that you donated it, and
That's all I do.
and
I know you will, and I know it'll be preserved, and that's the reason give it to the Masonic Lodge.
all right.